recently, the last few years, I've noticed apologists and historians for Luddites who have been saying basically saying the Luddites were no Luddites, but. In other words, what they're saying is, well, they weren't really against technology. That was the face thing, but actually they were basically fighting for their jobs and fighting for rights and trade unionists, if you like. I mean, there's a certain right-wing historians who say, well, the Luddites were just, all they were interested in was a closed shop. Oh, be that as it may, if that is the case and all they were is trade unions, then we might as well ditch the word altogether, because we'll just call them trade unionists or whatever. What is interesting about the Luddites is that they contested technology, and that's why we still use the word. And we don't know what the Luddites actually thought, and they probably different members of the organisation probably thought different things. But what we do know is that the technology they were fighting against, namely the technology of the textile mill, was one that was intrinsically opposed to their livelihood, was intrinsically opposed to the sort of livelihoods that are independent, home-based, where you have a certain measure of control of your means of production and so on, and instead intrinsically imposes a lifestyle where the workers are, it first of all requires huge amounts of capital, requires division of labour, it requires regimentation, and it requires a high level of competitiveness that undercuts other forms of textile production. All that is intrinsic to that technology, and it's my submission that all technologies, to an extent, have imposed intrinsic environmental and social conditions. And to illustrate this, in the 5 minutes I've got left, I'll just take one technology that's arriving at the moment. It's on the ascendant, namely agricultural robots. Now, the main form of agricultural robot that we can find at the moment, and it's spreading very, very quickly, is the milking machine. This is being widely accepted by farmers for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it reduces drudgery, and secondly, because it enables small farms to carry on existing when there's all this competition from, or potential competition from, Megafarms, because the robot deals with 60 cows at a time, so you've only got to afford one robot, quite expensive, but there are EU grants, and then you don't have to milk your 60 cows or your 120 cows, which is what's a family farm. Now, both of those are arguments in favour of it that are put forward by the people who are selling it. What they don't mention is, first of all, that the traditional way to avoid drudgery and overwork is to employ relief milkers, and that's who will disappear when robot milkers come in. One of the main forms of agricultural employment that's still left in this country for people who haven't got land is relief milking. That will go. The second is that these robots may help family farms in their fight against mega farms, but actually a family farm in Britain has about 100 and something cows, produces about £1 million worth of milk a year, and from a global point of view, these are huge farms, and you import that technology to the bulk of the world, and you will see huge numbers of peasants, particularly in places like India, swept off the land and into these increasing megacities. The other side of agricultural robots in this country is less developed, mainly because they're a bit more dangerous because they move. The reason why milking robots are coming quickly is because they don't move, so they can't kill anybody, whereas robot tractors move, and for that reason although they've got GPS-driven tractors that are accurate to about 2 centimetres, they still have to have somebody in them to drive them in case something goes wrong and they mow down a rabbit or something. And but what they actually want to do is get them driverless. And this is put forward as being an agricultural, an environmental benefit. This is how they're selling these things. These things are green. And they are green because the pressure to extract more and more profit out of the land means that they make bigger and bigger tractors because one person can drive a bigger and bigger tractor. And that's compounded the problem because the tractors create compaction, and so you have to have an even bigger tractor to dig up all the compacted soil that you've compacted. But it's got to the point where these tractors won't even go through the gates, so they've had to stop and think, what we'll do, let's get rid of the driver. And once you get rid of the driver, then you're pressing buttons. Then you can have lots of tractors, a swarm of tractors, which are all over the soil. And this little swarm, because they're light, they don't compact the soil, so therefore they don't have to do much work. It's a win-win environmental situation. That's the first advantage of them. The second advantage is what they call precision agriculture, which means that these tractors are equipped with all sorts of sensors and probes and things, and they go along and they measure the amount of fertility in the soil, and they measure the growth of the plants. They can select just the fruit, the harvesting one's fruit, just the right fruit for the supermarkets and so forth. In fact, basically, they can be equipped to do all the fine-tuned agricultural work that up until now could only be done by humans. And so what these tractors are going to do is they're not only going to get rid of tractor drivers, they're going to get rid of all the interesting, skilled human work that's to do with assessing land and working out what needs to go on it. And the reason they're being brought in is because farms are so bloody big that farmers can't do it themselves. The actual solution is to have more farmers, more people on the soil, working the land and making these assessments with the human brain. 1 minute I've got. So I've taken this example to show that this particular technology is a problem. The problem for humans and the loss of job, and the reason why more people will be pushed off the land into the cities is because of the technology. What is democratic control going to do of it? There can't be any democratic control because there are no more people on the land. And so you cannot have democracy without people. And that, to my mind, is one example of the way in which technology imposes conditions on people. And when we're fighting robotic tractors, we are fighting a technology. Democratic control is neither here nor there.
Thank you. We'll go straight on